Right, so today I thought we'd do a greetings card. It can be for any occasion, Mother's Day, birthday, Easter, anything you want. I've got a card blank which measures just under 15 square, just over 14.5 square. And I've gathered together some supplies. I've got some plain paper which I'm going to ink up, some lace which I dyed with turmeric, a couple of panels of patterned paper which coordinate nicely with the turmeric dyed lace, some buttons, a little bit of, this is actually Halloween set dressing, but it's a bit like stringy gauze. Some of these absolutely gorgeous chipboards from Samantha K. These were designed to coordinate with my stamps from Samantha K. So they're available on her website, and so are the stamps. Some more chipboards, some like leaves, and I've got a couple of blending brushes just for if I want to ink up the chipboards. So I'll just move those out of the way at the moment. I'm going to use Distress Oxides for inking my backgrounds. I want pale colours, so I think I'll go with pumice stone and antique linen and see how that comes out. I'm going to use my little brayer, but any brayer would do. I'll get my other one as well, my speedball brayer. So we'll start with the first layer. This is a panel that I've just cut to fit on my card blank. There's just going to be a little white edge. And then this is a separate piece, the same depth more or less, but not quite as wide. So I'll ink those up to set off with. We'll start with pumice stone and see what that looks like. I think it might be quite nice. The sort of colours of the papers are greys and sort of a mustardy yellow. So I'll get quite a lot of ink on there. I just want a random effect, so I'm just going to go around the edges with some ink. The centre of this panel won't show very much, so it doesn't matter what the centre looks like. But I just want a random sort of painterly effect, a little bit like old plaster. So that's, yeah, I think that's okay. Set that aside a minute. I'm just wondering about adding a little bit of the antique linen. I think I'll do that on this one with the other brayer, and then you can see the difference of the different brayers, how they apply ink. The hard brayer is quite a random effect, which is nice. This is a little bit more of a solid effect. So I'm just doing the edges. You can see we're getting a lot more ink on with the solid one. Go top and bottom again. And we do get sort of lines from the brayer, but I don't mind that, it adds a bit of interest. There we are. I'm not going to clean my brayers, but I will make sure that I clean them later, because I don't want the distress ink to sort of go on to any other project that I hadn't intended it to. I'm just using some of this ink up that's on my hard brayer on this panel. So I've got a combination of the two colours. But as I say, it's quite random. So with that one and that one. Just going to get rid of the ink from my glass mat, and then I don't get it on everywhere. Right, and I'll just set my brayers aside to wash later. I think I'll pop just a plain sheet of paper down, just so that it protects the back of my card from any stray ink that I have on my glass mat. There we are. So we've got our first layer. I'm then going to layer up this one, which I think coordinates rather nicely, but I want a bit more texture, so I'm going to just distress the edges slightly. I just run my scissors around, which makes more texture on the edges. I had already cut this sheet of paper so that it was the correct size to sit on there. I didn't think you needed to see me cutting paper. I've then got this sheet, which is slightly smaller, which again I'm going to distress the edges. You can get distressing tools, which I have one, but I just find it as easy to do it with my scissors. But if you want a little bit more control, you can use a distressing tool. I'm just going to get my sticky scissors. I have one pair of scissors that I use, and I call them my sticky scissors. It's for when I use foam pads. So I think I'm just going to add the first layer just flat, I think. So I'm just going to have some double-sided tape. And I'm just putting a couple of pieces on. And I'm leaving areas at the edge because I may want to tuck little things underneath later, and if I leave a little bit of a gap, I know that I can add anything in. You'll see what I mean when we get to that stage. So this is the first layer. That's about central. And the second layer, which is slightly smaller. Now this has got butterflies that have the right way up, so just check before you pop things on if they've got a one-way design. And again, I'm leaving gaps around the edge in case I want to add anything in tucked underneath. Sometimes I add just like little book page words or things like that, and if you leave yourself a gap, then you're able to add things in if you want. Sometimes I add glue on my foam pads, just so that it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. If I don't get it positioned exactly right, then I can move it about. So it's very difficult without being above it, but I don't want to stick my head in the frame. So that's quite nice. We've got that far. And then this panel here, think it's going to go across. I'll just have to lift it up and see if it's the right size. Yeah, I think we're going to go across there. What I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to add some lace to it, which coordinates nicely. And I don't mind the fact that it might have frayed edges, raggy edges. That doesn't bother me at all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place it on, and then I have a stapler, and I'm just going to add a couple of staples and then pull it taut, and again I need to cut that off about level. Doesn't matter if it's exact. There we are. So I think I like it that way around. So that will go on there. And I don't mind the staples. I quite like the fact that they add a bit of interest. So I'm going to add that with double-sided tape. Do I want it with? No, I think I'll do with foam tape, because then I've got also another little bit where I can add things underneath. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I think I've positioned those so that they will be on this top layer. You can measure if you want, but I just sort of did it by eye. That's that, and I think I liked it that way around. So I'll go straight on there. It should be straight on there. Yeah, that's about straight. Now let's see, I've got 2 flowers. Samantha sent me these because some of them were sort of a little broken, or samples or bits and pieces, just as a little gift to just use up what she was going to maybe get rid of, and she knew I could use them, so she sent me them, which was very nice of her. Now I think I'm going to layer those up, but I think I want a little bit of something underneath them, just so that they show up. And this is, it's a bit like gauze, but it's more cotton and textured gauze. It's Halloween netting that you would use to hang from doors and window frames over Halloween. But it's quite nice to use just as texture. I've got some 3D matte gel. This is Prima Art Basics, and I'm just going to add a little bit across there. I usually use my heavy body gel, but I've just run out at the moment, so this will do the same thing. And it dries clear, so you won't see it once it's dried. Plus the fact it'll have more things on the top. I don't mind if these little bits are wispy and move about. So there's usually a right and a wrong way with chipboards. The more burnt area, where you get patchy areas where it's been laser cut, that goes underneath. So this one will go on there. Now I think before I start I'm going to ink those up. So I'll just set that aside for the moment. And I think I'm going to make these, let's see, maybe old paper. I think I'll just seal my soft back gel up and find my ink pads, which seem to escape to me at the moment. There. Yeah, I think we'll have old paper. So I've got one of my inking brushes that I use, and it might not change the colour much, but just a little bit. Just dab that on. It's quite nice. This will be quite nice to use later in a project. You can keep these inky bits of paper and use them later, because your chipboards act as stencils. So if you sort of think about it when you're inking up, you can actually create quite a pretty pattern to use in a card. Right, that's that one. Just wondering if I want them a little bit browner, a bit darker. Might do, yeah. So I think I'm going to add a little bit of vintage photo as well. So again, a different brush, because I have different brushes for different colours. Yeah, that just makes it a little bit darker. And I'll do this one as well. As you can see, we've got very pretty paper that we can use later. So I'll just turn that upside down and then we don't ruin that. And you can see the colour of the flowers. So then I'll just add these by using a little bit of PVA. I think that should stick them okay. I tend to put the PVA on the back of my hand, and then I can just, it's more the centre that'll stick them in and press that on. Then I'm going to have this as a second layer, so I'm just going to overlap the petals so that they aren't in the same place. And then I think I'm going to add this vintage style button in the centre, which if I get plenty of this extra strong PVA in the middle, that should stick there. Now I've got these, let me just get rid of that. That's a little bit of the chipboard that's still in there. I might leave these cream and just pop those maybe there. Maybe that one could go there. Actually, that one might be enough on its own. Just play around till you see. Yeah, I think that one will be enough on its own. So I'll get a bit more PVA on the back of my hand. You could put it directly on the chipboard, but I tend to put it onto my hand and then I get plenty on without a lot of fuss. Right, I'll just press that down. There we are. I think we're getting there. I have these which are very pretty, which again coordinate with my stamps. So I think I might add one of the two of those in. Actually, if that hasn't stuck, no, it hasn't stuck yet. What I could do is add another one of those in the centre, which would look very pretty. Let's have a look at the different sizes. Yes, I think that'll fit in nicely. So we'll get a nice lot of PVA on there. Sticking to my fingers. Get that in the centre. There we are. I'll put more PVA in there. And this button is a nice sort of browny tortoise shell almost. And it's still got the original thread on it. There we are. Get rid of that thread. Just wondering whether we should need any more buttons anywhere else. I think they're a little bit white, so I don't think I will. What I sometimes do is cut some of the chipboards in half and pop them underneath the layers. This is why I did the layers with foam, because then you can pop them underneath, just poking out. So I think we're going to go, just need some more PVA. Just get that on the back of the chipboard. And then I have to have little bits poking out underneath the other layers. So maybe one piece there. And then if I move that out of the way a little bit, another one there. More PVA on the back. Just lift it up. And then you can't tell that those aren't full pieces. And then all we would need then was a sentiment. But I tend to not put the sentiments on to set off with, because then you can decide just before you give the card what sentiment you want on. So that's a nice, easy, simple card with just papers and distress inks, which will go on that card blank there. So I hope you like that, and I hope you give it a go.